Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I want to read a part of this book called The Government of God by John Taylor. If you're new to the church or you don't know, John Taylor was the third president of the church after Brigham Young. And I came across this because you may remember I got this email from Deanne Shoup that had a quote, and the quote comes from this book, The Gospel Kingdom, which is essentially a compilation of different things that John Taylor said. A lot of it is from the Journal of Discourses. And this is the quote that we went over in that last video. But if you go down to, you have this, establishing the kingdom, the great council at Adam-ondi-Ahman. And that piqued my interest. And so what we're going to read, it's not just about Adam-ondi-Ahman. There's actually a couple of really interesting things that we're going to go over. But toward the end of it, it does talk about Adam-ondi-Ahman. And so this was kind of a important find for me because I have this playlist called Adam-ondi-Ahman where I go through all the scriptures having to do with Adam-ondi-Ahman, the teachings of Joseph Smith, the teachings of Joseph Fielding Smith, and Bruce R. McConkie. And there are a couple other videos that I wanted to do, but this will have to be another one because I didn't know that John Taylor talked about Adam-ondi-Ahman until now. So I'm going to have to do a separate video about that and add it to this playlist. I'll put the link for this playlist in the description box below if you haven't watched it. I would encourage you to do so because we go over everything that I know of at the moment. Okay, so before we get into the government of God, here is the update on the Flood the Earth Challenge. We are at 8,054 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. And there are 3 new reports of people meeting with the missionaries, which brings us to 117 total. And for the month, there have been 10 reports of people meeting with the missionaries, which is better than December and November of last year. So that's really good. And then we have 1 new report of someone getting baptized. So that's 2 for this month. And 36 overall since we started the challenge back in December 2022. And it's making a difference. If you haven't already joined the challenge, I would encourage you to do so because you never know what's going to happen. Whoever you share the Book of Mormon with, undoubtedly they'll have been prepared ahead of time by the Lord in ways that you don't know. And so just do your part and share the gospel, share a copy of the Book of Mormon. Also, if you've already joined the challenge, remember that the channel goal is to try and get to 10. If we did that, this number would be a lot bigger. So please try and do that. And make sure that whenever you report how many copies you've shared, you can do it in the comments or send me an email. Make sure to include #flood or just the word flood. It helps me quickly find your comments in your emails. Okay. #flood. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into this. So, The Government of God by John Taylor. At this time, he was in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This was published in Liverpool in the United Kingdom. Okay, and we're going to the very last chapter, chapter 12. The effects of the establishment of Christ's kingdom or the reign of God upon the earth. And I've only kind of skimmed through this and read certain parts of this chapter, but I can tell you we're going to have some pretty good stuff to talk about. All right. So let me get rid of this search over here on the right. We'll zoom in. Having said so much pertaining to the kingdom, we come to our last proposition and inquire, what will be the effects of the establishment of Christ's kingdom or the reign of God on the earth? It is indeed a grand and important question and requires our most serious and calm deliberation. If after all this distress, turbulation, war, bloodshed, and sacrifice of human life, the condition of the world is no better, man is certainly in a most unhappy, hopeless situation. If it is not nothing more than some of the changes contemplated by man from one species of government to another, and we must still have war, bloodshed, and disorder, and be subject to the caprices of tyrants or the anarchy of mobs, our prospects are indeed gloomy, and our hopes vain. We may as well eat and drink, for tomorrow we die. For, as we have already proven, Under the most improved state of human governments, we should still be subject to all the ills which flesh is heir to, without any redeeming hope. But this is not a transient, short-lived change. It is something decreed by God in relation to the earth and man from before the commencement of the world. Even the dispossessing of Satan, the destruction of the ungodly, and the reign of God, or in other words, putting the moral world in the same position in which the physical world is, under the direction of the Almighty. It is the doing away with war, bloodshed, misery, disease, and sin, and the ushering in of a kingdom of peace, righteousness, justice, happiness, and prosperity. It is the restoration of the earth and man to the primeval glory and pristine excellence. In fact, the restitution of all things spoken of by all the prophets since the world began. Now, this is interesting. We talk every so often about the ongoing restoration on this channel, and it's a really it's been said a lot frequently, and I'll show you. And I know that for a fact. Let me show you my spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is called Timeline Phrase, and if you're new to this, it's just a spreadsheet that I put together using the Scripture Citation Index. Okay, this website right here, you go down to search, and then you can search either talks or scriptures. And in this case, I just search General Conference talks. It goes back to 1942, and you can search for any word or phrase that you want to, and it'll pull up all the talks that include that word or phrase. So we've already searched a lot of different words and phrases, and it's been pretty enlightening. There is a story that is told just by looking at this. And this is part of that story. We've already searched this before. I've already gone over it, but I'm pulling it up because it has to do with what we're reading. Okay, so I have two phrases: ongoing restoration and continuing restoration. These two columns right here. So for example, ongoing restoration, there was one General Conference talk in 2023 that contained that phrase. See how this goes? In 2022, there was one talk that had continuing restoration. So you can see like a cluster or a higher frequency of these terms being used since 2019, and especially in 2020. But what about when we go back in time? How often do these two phrases come up? Well, let's take a look. We'll go back, all the way to 1942, and not at all. Not at all. Now, of course, you're gonna have the word restoration, but I didn't look that up. That's gonna come up like a billion times, and maybe it's been used more frequently lately. I don't know. In fact, you know what? I may have already searched for that. Let me check this one. This is a separate spreadsheet. It's the same thing, but these are like high frequency terms. And I have it separate because I use conditional formatting to automatically color these cells. So you can see you can more easily see the years that stick out. But I don't think I've done restoration. No, I haven't. So maybe I should do that in the near future. But whatever the case, ongoing restoration and continuing restoration, just suddenly those are being used ever since 2019. Okay. And so, in fact, people have had questions about this. They've been submitting questions to the general authorities. We're about to go over something that Elder Bednar said, because he answered, what does it mean that the church is, that the restoration is ongoing? We'll get to that in just a minute. But, I'm just showing you, this is like a more recent phenomena. And he is talking about, if we go back to the government of God, he's talking about it is the restoration of the earth and man to their primeval glory and pristine excellence. I think a lot of times when we hear the ongoing restoration, we assume it's just the church. And certainly there are things being restored in the church. It's ongoing. But I think it might be broader in scope than just that. And I've never really thought about that before. Well, so let's continue. He explains more. Now, restoration signifies a bringing back and must refer to something which existed before, for if it did not exist before, it cannot be restored. I cannot describe this better than Parley P. Pratt has done in his Voice of Warning, and shall therefore make the following extract. Quote, "This is one of the most important subjects upon which the human mind can contemplate, and one perhaps as little understood in the present age as any other now lying over the face of prophecy. But however neglected at the present time, it was once the groundwork of the faith, hope, and joy of the saints. It was a correct understanding of this subject and firm belief in it that influenced all their movements. Their minds, once fastening upon it, they could not be shaken from their purposes. Their faith was firm, their joy constant, and their hope like an anchor to the soul, both sure and steadfast, reaching to that within the veil. It was this that enabled them to rejoice in the midst of tribulation, persecution, sword, and flame. And in view of this, they took joyfully the spoiling of their goods and gladly wandering as strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For they sought a country, a city, and an inheritance that none but a saint ever thought of or understood or even hoped for." Now, we can never understand precisely what is meant by restoration unless we understand what is lost or taken away. For instance, when we offer to restore anything to a man, it is as much as to say he once possessed it but had lost it, and we propose to replace or put him in possession of that which he once had. Therefore, when a prophet speaks of the restoration of all things, he means that all things have undergone a change and are to be again restored to their primitive order, even as they first existed. First, then, it becomes necessary for us to take a view of creation. Well, actually, I'm going to stop right there. Now, one thing about that, though, and I'm not trying to contradict either of them. Okay, so Elder Bednar, he explained what is meant when the church right now is talking about the ongoing restoration. You can watch the video. I'll put the link for it in the description below. But I transcribed what he said here, and I put it on my quotes A through Z spreadsheet. Currently, it's on row 108, and this is what David A. Bednar said. By the way, this was posted on Facebook or on his social media on July 8th, 2023. Okay, Elder Bednar. One of the questions that I frequently am asked is, what does it mean that the restoration is ongoing? Let me answer that question with an article of faith and two scriptures. First, in the 9th article of faith, we believe all that God has revealed, all that he does now reveal, and we believe that he will yet reveal many great and important things pertaining to the kingdom of God. What he will yet reveal alludes to the ongoing nature of the restoration. So that's interesting because he's saying something different from what we're reading in the kingdom of God. He's saying that it would include things that had not yet been revealed, like brand new things that we don't know about. Okay. Second, it is in the 21st section of the Doctrine and Covenants. This is specifically to the prophet Joseph Smith. Beginning in verse 1, "Behold, there shall be a record kept among you, and in it thou shalt be called a seer, a translator, a prophet, an apostle of Jesus Christ, an elder of the church, through the will of God the Father and the grace of your Lord Jesus Christ." Now, please note this, verse 2, "being inspired of the Holy Ghost to lay the foundation thereof." Okay, foundation. "And to build it up unto the most holy faith, which church was organized and established in the year of your Lord, 1830. Joseph Smith did not receive everything. He received that which was necessary to lay the foundation of the church. So if you watch a home being built, you put in the foundation, you put up the exterior walls, and it takes a long time for all the finishing work to be accomplished, to finally have a finished home. Joseph specifically was described as laying the foundation. So all of that additional construction, if you will, is the ongoing nature of the restoration. Third verse is in the 128th section of the Doctrine and Covenants. For it is necessary in the ushering in of the dispensation of the fullness of times, which dispensation is beginning to usher in, that a whole and complete and perfect union and welding together of dispensations and keys and powers and glories should take place and be revealed from the days of Adam even to the present time. And not only this, but those things which never have been revealed from the foundation of the world, but have been kept hid from the wise and prudent, shall be revealed in the dispensation of the fullness of times. Again, the ongoing nature of the restoration. So just to summarize, Joseph didn't receive everything. He received all that was necessary to establish the foundation, and we believe all that God has revealed in all that he will yet reveal. That is the ongoing nature of the restoration. So I don't necessarily find it contradictory. I think John Taylor is thinking about those things that had been before that were restored through Joseph Smith in the classical sense, something that we did actually have on earth before being brought back, all the ordinances, the temple, so on and so forth. But the way that we talk about the restoration nowadays, it also, I don't think John Taylor would disagree with what David A. Bednar just said, because it's in the scriptures that there's still going to be things that are revealed in the future. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that when we hear President Nelson or anybody else right now talking about the ongoing restoration, they're also including new things that have not been revealed yet, not just things that once were in some former dispensation. So it's like both of those things. Okay, let's continue. First, then, it becomes necessary for us to take a view of creation as it rolled in purity from the hand of its creator. And if you can discover the true state in which it then existed and understand the changes that have taken place since, then we shall be able to understand what it is to be restored. And thus our minds being prepared, we shall be looking for the very things which will come and shall be in no danger of lifting our puny arm in ignorance to oppose the things of God. First, then, we will take a view of the earth as to its surface, local situation, and productions. When God had created the heavens and the earth and separated the light from the darkness, his next great command was to the waters. Genesis 1:9. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. From this we learn a marvelous fact, which very few have ever realized or believe in this benighted age. We learn that the waters, which are now divided into oceans, seas, and lakes, were then all gathered together into one vast ocean, and consequently that the land, which is now torn asunder and divided into continents and islands almost innumerable, was then one vast continent or body, not separated as it is now. Second, we hear the Lord God pronounce the earth as well as everything else very good. From this we learn that there were neither deserts, barren places, stagnant swamps, rough, broken, rugged hills, nor vast mountains covered with eternal snow. And no part of it was located in the frigid zone, so as to render its climate dreary and unproductive, subject to eternal frost or everlasting chains of ice. Where no sweet flowers, the dreary landscape cheer, nor plenteous harvests crown the passing year. But the whole earth was probably one vast plain, or interspersed with gently rising hills and sloping vales, well calculated for cultivation, while its climate was delightfully varied, with the moderate changes of heat and cold, of wet and of wet and dry, which only tended to crown the varied year with the greater variety of productions, all for the good of man, animal, fowl, or creeping thing. While from the flowery plain or spicy grove, sweet odors were wafted on every breeze, and all the vast creation of animated being breathed not but health and peace and joy. So yeah, this is something, before I continue, this is something that we can expect in the near future. The earth to go back to how it was before, its paradisiacal state. And for all I know, that's some of what President Nelson is talking about. He's definitely talking about the church, obviously, but like I said, I think it might be grander in scope when we're talking about the restoration, because we're going all the way back to how things were during the time of Adam and Eve. And for all I know, for all you know, maybe President Nelson has already done some kind of prayer or has been authorized to like start those changes. I've talked about global warming, and I do think that it's getting warmer, but I don't think that it's strictly because of humans, if at all, and that it's part of the process of the earth becoming a paradisiacal world again. I really think so. And wouldn't it be just like Satan to blame it on you and say, well, you're doing this, you need to change. And then you have all these people trying to, all these different powers trying to capitalize on that lie and impose restrictions and laws and trying, just playing their political game. But what if, in fact, we have some president of the church that actually initiated that? It may have been a president of the church or not. Maybe it was just the Lord doing it himself. But we don't know. It could be. Either way, the earth will be going back to how it was, and it'll be restored. Okay. Next, we learn from Genesis 1, 29 and 30. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. And it was so. From these verses we learn that the earth yielded neither noxious weeds, nor poisonous plants, nor useless thorns and thistles. Indeed, everything that grew was just calculated for the food of man, beast, fowl, and creeping thing. And their food was all vegetable. Flesh and blood were never sacrificed to glut their souls or gratify their appetites. The beasts of the earth were all in perfect harmony with each other. The lion ate straw like the ox. The wolf dwelt with the lamb. The leopard lay down with the kid. The cow and bear fed together in the same pasture, while their young ones reposed in perfect security under the shade of the same trees. All was peace and harmony, and nothing to hurt nor disturb in all the holy mountain. Now, see, this is why I like to read things like all the way through and try and go through with a fine-tooth comb, because here is another quote talking about becoming essentially vegetarians or herbivores during the millennium, like it was before the fall, like it was during the time of Adam and Eve. We already have a quote from Bruce R. McConkie, vegetarian, right here. I have it in a couple different places, but I have a row 158 vegetarian, and we have this from Bruce R. McConkie. I'm not going to read it, but he says the same thing. He adds in, though, no, I guess I will read part of it. He adds in that another thing to consider is that all life that remains after the burning, after the wicked are destroyed, the earth is cleansed, All that remain will be quickened, both Latter-day Saints as well as the rest of humanity, and even the animals themselves. This is what he says. Implicit, okay, I'll just read it. Okay, Isaiah gives us these poetically phrased particulars about animal life during the millennium. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, he says, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock. Implicit in this pronouncement is the fact that man and all forms of life will be vegetarians in the coming day. The eating of meat will cease because, for one thing, death as we know it ceases. There will be no shedding of blood because man and beast are changed, quickened, and blood no longer flows in their veins. So he adds that detail. So now I'm going to have another quote to put alongside this. So that's it's going to be interesting. And like I said, I said this recently. I can't remember if it was during a live stream or something else, but I think that our bodies are going to be changed, and they're going to be changed in a very dramatic way, in a very fundamental way. And I don't think that our new quickened bodies are going to have appetite for those things. You're not going to like, I doubt that we're going to look back and be like, oh my gosh, chicken nuggets sounds so good right now. I think that our bodies are going to be completely changed, and that's not going to sound good. Just like, does dirt sound appetizing to you, or a blanket? Probably not. So that's just a guess of mine. And we know that Christ, he was resurrected. He was able to eat meat. He ate fish. So it's not like you can't do it. It's just that during the millennium, you're not going to have any animals that you can slaughter like you do now. They're not going to have blood, and they're going to be changed. And anyway, let's continue. Okay. And to crown the whole, we behold man created in the image of God and exalted in dignity and power, having dominion over all the vast creation of animated beings, which swarm through the earth, while at the same time he inhabits a beautiful and well-watered garden, in the midst of which stood the tree of life, to which he had free access, while he stood in the presence of his Maker, conversed with him face to face, and gazed upon his glory without a dimming veil between. O reader, contemplate for a moment this beautiful creation, clothed with peace and plenty, the earth teeming with harmless animals, rejoicing over all the plain, the air swarming with delightful birds, whose never-ceasing notes filled the air with varied melody, and all in subjugation to their rightful sovereign who rejoiced over them, while in a delightful garden, the capital of creation, man was seated on the throne of his vast empire, swaying his scepter over all the earth, while with undisputed right, while legions of angels encamped round about him, and joined their glad voices in grateful songs of praise and shouts of joy. Neither a sigh nor groan was heard throughout the vast expanse. Neither was there sorrow, tears, pain, weeping, sickness, nor death, neither contentions, wars, nor bloodshed. But peace crowned the seasons. Excuse me. But peace crowned the seasons as they rolled, and life, joy, and love reigned all over his works. But oh, how changed the scene. It now becomes my painful duty to trace some of the important changes which have taken place, and the causes which have conspired to reduce the earth and its inhabitants to their present state. First, man fell from his standing before God by giving heed to temptation, and this fall affected the whole creation, as well as man, and caused various changes to take place. He was banished from the presence of his Creator, and a veil was drawn between them, and he was driven from the Garden of Eden to till the earth, which was then cursed for man's sake, and should begin to bring forth thorns and thistles. And with the sweat of his face he should earn his bread, and in sorrow eat of it all the days of his life, and finally return to dust. But as to Eve, her curse was a great multiplicity of sorrow in conception, and between her seed and the seed of the serpent, there was to be a constant enmity, and it should bruise the serpent's head, and the serpent should bruise his heel, which of course is a reference to Christ and the atonement and all that. Now, reader, contemplate the change. This scene, which was so beautiful a little before, had now become the abode of sorrow and toil, of death and mourning, the earth groaning with its production of accursed thorns and thistles, man and beast at enmity, the serpent slyly creeping away, fearing lest his head should get the deadly bruise, and man's startling amid the thorny path in fear lest the serpent's fangs should pierce his heel, while the lamb yields his blood upon the smoking altar. Soon man begins to persecute, hate, and murder his fellow until at length the earth is filled with violence, all flesh becomes corrupt, the powers of darkness prevail, and it repented Noah that God had made man, and it grieved him at his heart because the Lord should come out in vengeance and cleanse the earth by water. How far the flood may have contributed to produce the various changes as to the division of the earth into broken fragments, islands and continents, mountains and valleys, we have not been informed, and the change must have been considerable. But after the flood, in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided. See Genesis 10:25. A short history, to be sure, of so great an event, but still it will account for the mighty revolution which rolled the sea from its own place in the north and brought it to interpose between different portions of the earth, which were thus parted asunder and moved into something near their present form. This, together with the earthquakes, revolutions, and commotions which have since taken place, have all contributed to reduce the face of the earth to its present state, while the great curses which have fallen upon different portions because of the wickedness of men will account for the stagnant swamps, the sunken lakes, the dead seas, and great deserts. Witness, for instance, the denunciations of the prophets upon Babylon, how it was to become perpetual desolations, a den of wild beasts, a dwelling of unclean and hateful birds, a place for owls, and should never be inhabited, but should lie desolate from generation to generation. Witness also the plains of Sodom, filled with towns, cities, and flourishing gardens, well watered, but oh, how changed. A vast sea of stagnant water alone marks the place. Witness the land of Palestine. In the days of Solomon, it was capable of sustaining millions of people, besides a surplus of wheat and other productions, which were exchanged with the neighboring nations, whereas now it is desolate and hardly capable of sustaining a few miserable inhabitants. Now, I will say, things have changed, obviously. Now the Jews are returning. Let's see, Israel 365. Let's go there. All right, I had to stop and pull up all the different articles and find them all, but I'll put all these in the description box below. But there have been things taking place in and around the Dead Sea. I'll just show you some of the highlights here. New waterfall burst to life near Dead Sea. I don't know the date on this. It said it in the results, but this was like I think in 2020. Plant found in Mount Sodom has scientists baffled. Ezekiel's Dead Sea prophecy may solve the mystery. And there's a part here that I want to read. Okay. Lobaton is an expert tour guide who specializes in caves in the Dead Sea region. While he says that he does not currently live a religious lifestyle, he learned in yeshiva as a young man and holds the Bible in high regard, seeing prophecy unfolding in the land. Quote, Israel is the Holy Land. I see that whenever I tour the land. I see fish in ponds on the shore of the Dead Sea. I found a plant in total darkness. The Crusaders couldn't see the sanctity of the land, so they named it the Dead Sea. The Bible calls it the Sea of Salt. I want to show people that the sea is not dead. It used to be full of life and will be again. This process is happening today. We have this, Ezekiel's prophecy unfolding on the shores of the Dead Sea. It's a video. Well, it looks like the video is unavailable now. But anyway, Dead Sea blooms, floral wonderland for first time. Ezekiel's prophecy coming to fruition. And so here you see all these flowers that never used to grow in that part of the shores of the Dead Sea. Prophecy appears. Rivers flow from Jerusalem into the Dead Sea. And there's a video you can watch, and you can go through the whole article. And then finally, Ezekiel's end of days vision revealed. Dead Sea coming to life. There's starting to be fish that are showing up in these sinkholes near the Dead Sea. And the girl that discovered it and brought it to light was this girl right here, Samantha Siegel. I interviewed her. This was about a year ago. I'll put the link for this interview in the description below, but we had a good chat. And so there are things taking place right now as we speak around the Dead Sea, and then the land in general, not just the Dead Sea, but Israel. It's coming back to life. Okay. And when I cast mine eyes over our own land and see the numerous swamps, lakes, and ponds of stagnant waters, together with the vast mountains and innumerable rough places, rocks having been rent and torn asunder from the center to circumference, I exclaim, whence all this? When I read the Book of Mormon, it informs me that while Christ was crucified among the Jews, this whole American continent was shaken to its foundation, that many cities were sunk and waters came up in their places, that the rocks were all rent in twain, that mountains were thrown up to an exceeding height, and other mountains became valleys, the level roads spoiled, and the whole face of the land changed. I then exclaim, these things are no longer a mystery. I have now learned to account for the many wonders which I have everywhere behold throughout our whole country, when I am passing a ledge of rocks and see they have all been rent and torn asunder. While some huge fragments are found deeply embedded in the earth, some rods from whence they were torn, I exclaim with astonishment, these were the groans, the convulsive throes of agonizing nature, while the Son of God suffered upon the cross. But men have degenerated and greatly changed, as well as the earth. The sins, the abominations, and the many evil habits of the latter ages have added to the miseries, toils, and sufferings of human life. The idleness, extravagance, pride, covetousness, drunkenness, and other abominations which are characteristics of the latter times have all combined to sink mankind to the lowest state of wretchedness and degradation, while priestcraft and false doctrines have greatly tended to lull mankind to sleep and cause them to rest, infinitely short of the powers and attainments which the ancients did enjoy, and which are alone calculated to exalt the intellectual powers of the human mind, to establish noble, to establish noble and generous sentiments, to enlarge the heart, and to expand the soul to the utmost extent of its capacity. Witness the ancients conversing with the great Jehovah, learning lessons from the angels, and receiving instruction by the Holy Ghost in dreams by night and visions by day, until at length the veil is taken off, and they permitted to gaze, while wonder and admiration upon all these things, past and future, yea, even to soar aloft amid unnumbered worlds, while the vast expanse of eternity stands open before them, and they contemplate the mighty works of the great I Am, until they know as they are known and see as they are seen. Compare this intelligence with the low smatterings of education and worldly wisdom, which seem to satisfy the narrow mind of man in our generation. Yea, behold the narrow-minded, calculating, trading, overreaching, penurious sycophant of the 19th century, who dreams of nothing here but how to increase his goods or take advantage of his neighbor, and whose only religious exercises or duties consist of going to meeting, paying the priest his hire, or praying to his God without expecting to be heard or answered, supposing that God has been deaf and dumb for many centuries, or altogether stupid and indifferent like himself. And having seen the two contrasted, you'll be able to form some idea of the vast elevation from which man has fallen. You'll also learn how infinitely beneath his former glory and dignity he is now living, and your heart will mourn and be exceedingly sorrowful when you contemplate him in his low estate, and then think he is your brother, and you'll be ready to exclaim with wonder, with wonder and astonishment, "O man, how art thou fallen! Once thou wast the favorite of heaven, thy maker delighted to converse with thee, and angels and the spirits of just men made perfect were thy companions. But now thou art degraded and brought down a level with the beasts, yea, far beneath them, for they look with horror and affright at your vain amusements, your sports, and your drunkenness, and thus often set an example worthy of your imitation." It's sad but true. Yeah, some people, a lot of people, are worse than animals. Yes. Well, did the Apostle Peter say of you that you know nothing, only what you know naturally as brute beasts, made to be taken and destroyed? And thus you perish from generation to generation, while all creation groans under its pollution, and sorrow and death, mourning and weeping, fill up the measure of the days of man. But, O my soul, dwell no longer on this awful scene. Let it suffice to have discovered in some degree what is lost. Let us turn our attention to what the prophets have said should be restored. The apostle Peter, while preaching to the Jews, says, "And he shall send Jesus Christ, which before was preached unto you, whom the heavens must receive until the times of restitution," and then in parentheses, restoration, "of all things which God hath spoken by the mouth of all the holy prophets since the world began." It appears from the above that all the holy prophets from Adam and those that follow after have had their eyes upon a certain time when all things should be restored to their primitive beauty and excellence. We also learned that the time of restitution was to be at or near the time of Christ's second coming, for the heavens are to receive him until the times of restitution, and then the Father will send him again to the earth. We will now proceed to notice in Isaiah, comfort ye, my people, saith your God. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she hath received of the Lord's hand double for all her sins. The voice of him that crieth in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. From these verses we learn, first, that the voice of one shall be heard in the wilderness to prepare the way of the Lord, just at the time when Jerusalem was or has been trodden down of the Gentiles long enough to have received at the Lord's hand double for all her sins. Yea, when the warfare of Jerusalem is accomplished, and her iniquities pardoned, then shall this proclamation be made as it was before by John. Yea, a second proclamation to prepare the way of the Lord for his second coming. And about that time, every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill will be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, and rough places plain. And then the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. Thus you see every mountain being laid low, and every valley exalted, and the rough places being made plain, and the crooked places straight, that these mighty revolutions will begin to restore the face of the earth to its former beauty. But all this done, we have not yet gone through our restoration. There are many more great things to be done in order to restore all things. And just, by the way, I'm just thinking about it right now as we're thinking about great changes upon the earth. We think about, we think back to when President Nelson announced the renovation of the Salt Lake Temple and how they're going to do all this stuff to make it earthquake proof. And this is probably a big part of it. You know, maybe it would have happened anyway. I don't know. I don't know how much time they would have waited to renovate the Salt Lake Temple, but he's made a big deal about everything that they're doing with the foundation of the temple. So much so that he included video of him down at the foundation of the temple in General Conference. You remember when that video was played and he had his hard hat and he was showing the original foundation, and he has been using the Salt Lake Temple as a object lesson for us, as though we should liken ourselves to the Salt Lake Temple, how we need to have a strong spiritual foundation. We need to, what did he say? Remove the old debris from our lives and so on and so forth. Right. But he made that famous statement where he said that, if there's an earthquake that hits the Salt Lake Valley, there's no building that would be safer than the Salt Lake Temple to be in. I'm just paraphrasing. I can't remember exactly how he said it. He said, like, there will be nowhere safer than in that temple. So, I mean, this is probably a good idea to get it ready for a lot of movement, you know? I'd have to look into this, but I'm pretty sure that all modern temples have been designed in such a way that they're earthquake proof. If you know more about it, put it in the comments below. But I think, from what I can tell, it seems like they're doing it for all temples. They're getting all temples ready, either at their initial construction or whether it's like through renovation. I don't know about the St. George Temple. I know that like the Pioneer era temples are being renovated. Let's just do a quick search. St. George Temple earthquake proof. Let's see if anything comes up for that. Let's go to news. Let's see. St. George LDS Temple, Utah's first to close November 4th for several years to undergo seismic upgrade. Yeah. Now, if you don't know, the St. George Temple is now rededicated. That just happened in December. But here we have, I'll pull that up. What about the Manti Temple? Let's see, Manti Temple. I'm not seeing anything right off the bat, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Manti Temple is going through the same thing. If it needs it, I'm sure that it does. But yeah, if you know better, put it in the comments below. But you have to think like this is a very good move before the second coming happens. And when I say second coming, I'm talking about whenever all the land moves together, like when all the continents come together and there's the great earthquake. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Let's move on. Okay, our next is Isaiah 35th chapter, where we again read of the Lord's second coming and of the mighty works which attend it. The barren desert should abound with pools and springs of living water, and should produce grass with flowers blooming and blossoming as the rose, and that too about the time of the coming of their God, with vengeance and recompense, which must allude to his second coming. And Israel's to come at the same time to Zion, with songs of everlasting joy, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Here then we have the curse taken from the deserts, and they become fruitful, well-watered country. We will now inquire whether the islands return again to the continents from which they were once separated. For this subject, we refer you to Revelation chapter 6, verse 14. And every mountain and island were moved out of their places. For this we learn that they moved somewhere, and as it is the time of restoring what had been lost, they accordingly return and join themselves to the land whence they came. That's going to be interesting to see. Looking at you, Hawaii and Japan and New Zealand and everywhere else, Fiji. Our next is Isaiah 13, verses 13 and 14, where The earth shall move out of her place and be like a chaste roe, which no man taketh up. Also, I don't know what that is. Is it okay? L is 50, right? So 60, Isaiah 62:4. Thou shalt no more be termed forsaken, neither shall thy land any more be termed desolate, but thou shalt be called Hephzibah, in thy land Beulah, for the Lord delighted in thee, and thy land shall be married. In the first instance, we have the earth on a move like a chaste roe, and in the second place, we have it married. And from the whole, in various scriptures, we learn that the continents and islands shall be united in one, as they were on the morn of creation. And the sea shall retire and assemble in its own place where it was before. And all these scenes shall take place during the mighty convulsion of nature about the time of the coming of the Lord. Behold, the Mount of Olives rend in twain, while on its top he sets his feet again. The islands at his word obedient flee, while to the north he rolls the mighty sea. Restores the earth in one, as at first, with all its blessings, and removes the curse. Having restored the earth to the same glorious state in which it first existed, leveling the mountains, exalting the valleys, smoothing the rough places, making the deserts fruitful, and bringing all the continents and islands together, causing the curse to be taken off, that it shall no longer produce noxious weeds and thorns and thistles. The next thing is to regulate and restore the brute creation to their former state of peace and glory, causing all enmity to cease from off the earth. But this will never be done until there is a general destruction poured out upon man. Which will entirely cleanse the earth and sweep all wickedness from its face. This will be done by the rod of his mouth and by the breath of his lips, or in other words, by fire as universal as the flood. Isaiah 11:4 and 6 through 9. But with righteousness shall he judge the poor, and reprove with equity for the meek of the earth. And he shall smite the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together. And a child shall lead them, and the cow and the bear shall feed. Their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. And the sucking child shall play on the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, for the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. Thus, having cleansed the earth and glorified it with the knowledge of God, as the waters cover the sea, and having poured out his Spirit upon all flesh, both man and beast become perfectly harmless, as they were in the beginning, and feeding on vegetable food only, while nothing is left to hurt or destroy in all the vast creation. The prophets then proceed to give us many glorious descriptions of the enjoyments of its inhabitants. They shall build houses and inhabit them. They shall plant vineyards and drink the wine of them. They shall plant gardens and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For as the days of a tree are, the days of my people, and mine elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands. Now, really quick, somebody in the comments had said that they didn't think that in the millennium we would need to eat. And I'm not sure about that because of what we're reading right here. That I guess I don't think that people are going to be planting vineyards and gardens just for fun. Maybe that's the case, but it sounds like you will still need to eat, even though you have a changed body. I think once you're resurrected, at that point, you probably don't have to eat. Well, you won't because you're immortal. You can eat once you're resurrected, but I think when it comes to mortality during the millennium, being in a quickened state, I think you still have to eat. But it's basically based off of this verse right here. I don't know. There's a lot of questions about the biochemistry of a quickened body, not having blood, but still needing food and water, nourishment. I don't know. We'll find out when it comes. They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth in trouble, for they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. In this happy state of existence, it seems that all people will live to the full age of a tree, and this too without pain or sorrow. And whatsoever they ask will be immediately answered, and even all their wants will be anticipated. Now, that's kind of exciting, isn't it? Of course, then, none of them will sleep in the dust, for they will prefer to be translated, that is, changed in the twinkling of an eye from mortal to immortal. Again, don't get caught up on the words. He's talking about being resurrected, going from a quickened state to a resurrected state. That's what it is. After which they will continue to reign with Jesus on the earth. Okay, now we're switching over to Adam-ondi-Ahman. A great council will then be held to adjust the affairs of the world from the commencement, over which Father Adam will preside as head and representative of the human family. Okay, now this is interesting. He's saying that first you have all those changes take place and then Adam-ondi-Ahman. Now, I'm not going to take that as a fact, because we do know, again, I would refer you to my playlist called Adam-ondi-Ahman. We know that one of the purposes of Adam-ondi-Ahman is to prepare us for the second coming. There's a lot to it. I'm not going to go over all of it here, but maybe as we read this, maybe some of it will take place after this happens. Bruce R. McConkie says that there's going to be multiple sessions. It's not like it's all just going to happen all in a single hour or even in a single day, but there's going to be multiple sessions. We read from Orson Pratt. He seemed to indicate that the sacrament that will be held at Adam-ondi-Ahman would actually take place once we're caught up with those of us that'll be quickened at the time of Christ's coming, and then the resurrected saints will be there too, and then that's where the sacrament will happen. So I don't get too nitpicky over these details. I just take note of all of them, and it may be that we just don't have a full understanding of the timing, but that's what I know, that at least some of Adam-ondi-Ahman is going to take place before the second coming. Some of it may take place at the time that you're caught up. And according to this, it seems like maybe some of it will happen after. Or he's thinking that these things will happen, our bodies will change, and then Christ will come. I don't know. It's kind of confusing. But I'm going to save this on my spreadsheet so you can refer to it later. Okay, so a great council will then be held to adjust the affairs of the world from the commencement, over which Father Adam will preside as head and representative of the human family. There have been in different ages of the world communications opened between the heavens and the earth. Those powers have been separated and have acted in different spheres until the present. The kingdom of God on the earth has been small, weak, unpopular, trampled under foot of men, and none of men of noble minds, firm hopes, and daring resolution have advocated its principles. These men, being possessed of intelligence from the heavens by the ministering of angels, the communications of the spirits of the just, in the manifestation of eternal things, knew of the approaching day of glory, the reign of God on the earth. They understood their destiny and lived and died in the hopes of inheriting these things. Those communications from the heavens developed the purposes of God to them, and in all their moves, they were regulated by the prospect of the future. In the Mosaic dispensation, they had to make earthly things according to the pattern of heavenly. Hence it was said to Moses, "See that thou make all things according to the pattern shown thee in the mount." The ark was made, therefore, after a heavenly pattern, and so was the temple of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was a figure of the heavenly. The sacrifices of the Aaronic priesthood referred to the expiation of Christ, who appears as the earthly high priest of the Jews and as eternal high priest and intercessor in the heavens. His priesthood was an eternal one and is after the order of Melchizedek, and Melchizedek's was after his order, and they both were after the order that exists in the heavens. This priesthood with the gospel brought life and immortality to light, put men in possession of certainty, and unveiled the future. They knew the divine laws and ordinances and acted with a reference to them, and being commissioned of God, they had power to bind and loose, etc. Then they will assemble to regulate all these affairs at all that held keys of authority to administer will then represent their earthly course. So this talking about Adam-ondi-Ahman and the making a report of what you did when you held priesthood keys. And this authority has been handed down from one to another in different ages and in different dispensations. A full reckoning will have to be made by all. All who have held keys of priesthood will then have to give an account to those from whom they receive them. Those that were in the heavens have been assisting those that were upon the earth, but then they will unite together in a general council to give an account of their stewardships. And as in the various ages, men have received their power to administer from those who have previously held the keys thereof, there will be a general account. Those under the authorities of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints have to give an account of their transactions to those who direct them in the priesthood. Hence, the elders give an account to presidents of conferences, the presidents of conferences to presidents of nations, those presidents and the 70s give an account to the 12 apostles, the 12 to the first presidency, and they to Joseph, from whom they and the 12 received their priesthood. This will include, and by the way, I'm just going to point it out now, Hope of Israel. I think President Nelson may have given us a clue of this. No, not that. Hope of Israel 2018. He, during the Hope of Israel Worldwide Youth Devotional, it was him and Sister Nelson that spoke. And he said, I'm going to look up Brigham. He said, think of this, think of this, my dear young brothers and sisters. Right now, I am preparing for the day when I will be required to give an accounting to the prophet Joseph Smith, to Brigham Young and others, and ultimately to the Lord about my stewardship as God's prophet upon the earth today. I do not want to be asked, Brother Nelson, why were you not more clear with the youth about their part in gathering Israel? Why were you not more bold in enlisting them to participate? Now, he could be referring to just the end of his life, at Judgment Day or something like that. But I think he's talking about Adam-ondi-Ahman at this point. Reporting to your immediate supervisors, reporting to previous prophets, the dispensation head of this dispensation, Joseph Smith. That's an interesting thing to think about. Okay, let's go back to this. This will include arrangements of the last dispensation. Joseph delivers his authority to Peter, who held the keys before him and delivered them to him, and Peter to Moses and Elias, who endowed him with this authority on the mount, and they to those from whom they received them. And thus the world's affairs will be regulated and put right, the restitution of all things be accomplished, and the kingdom of God be ushered in. The earth will be delivered from under the curse, resume its paradisiacal glory, and all things pertaining to its restoration be fulfilled. Not only will the earth be restored, but also man, and those promises which long ago were the hope of the saints will be realized. The faithful servants of God who have lived in every age will then come forth and experience the full fruition of that joy for which they lived and hoped and suffered and died. The tombs will deliver up their captives, and reunited with the spirits which once animated, vivified, cheered, and sustained them while in this vale of tears, these bodies will be like unto Christ's glorious body, They will then rejoice, rejoice in that resurrection for which they lived while they sojourned below. Adam, Seth, Enoch, and the faithful who lived before the flood will possess their proper inheritance. Noah and Melchizedek will stand in their proper places. Abraham with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise, will come forward at the head of innumerable multitudes and possess the land which God gave unto them for an everlasting inheritance. The faithful of the continent of America will also stand in their proper place, but as this will be the time of the restoration of all things, and all things will not be fully restored at once, there will be a distinction between the resurrected bodies and those that have not been resurrected. And as the scriptures say, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God, neither doth corruption inherit incorruption. And although the world will enjoy just laws, in equitable administration and universal peace and happiness prevail as the result of this righteousness, yet there will be a peculiar habitation for the resurrected bodies. This habitation may be compared to paradise from whence man in the beginning was driven. When Adam was driven from the garden, an angel was placed with a flaming sword to guard the way of the tree of life, lest man should eat of it and become immortal in his degenerate state, and thus be incapable of obtaining that exaltation, which he would be capable of enjoying through the redemption of Jesus Christ and the power of resurrection with his renewed and glorified body. Having tasted of the nature of the fall and having grappled with sin and misery, knowing like the gods both good and evil, having like Jesus overcome the evil and through the power of the atonement, having conquered death, hell, and the grave, he regains that paradise from which he was banished, not in the capacity of ignorant man, unacquainted with evil, but like unto a god. He can now stretch forth and partake of the tree of life and eat of its fruits and live and flourish eternally in possession of that immortality which Jesus long ago promised to the faithful. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne and eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. And that's it. It was a lot, but here I have a new source that I didn't know about that talks about Adam-ondi-Ahman and even seems to indicate when some of it will take place in relation to other events. And we've had a really pretty picture painted for us of what we have to expect in the millennium and how good things are going to be. And really what the full restoration is, not just the church itself, but the entire world and in all species, all animals and everything. It's all going to go back to how it was. It's going to be very exciting. And I hope it happens really soon, and I think that it will. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.